History continues to be made in British Formula 3, and it is the start of another championship season. The BRDC British F3 Championship bursts into life at Brands Hatch this weekend. 3 races as ever, the usual format. Race 1 was yesterday and it was won by Ayrton Simmons, his 4th career win. And indeed, he's the only race winner from these cars on the grid. There are some returning drivers, he's one of them. There are some newcomers on the grid, and indeed 19 cars, the biggest entry that the championship has had for the opening round since 2016. So it's really good that even though perhaps single-seater junior racing isn't as popular as once it was, and of course drivers finding it hard to get sponsorship after the pandemic and through the pandemic, there is renewed interest and the championship looking stronger than ever. And we are in for 2 very good races today, not only because this one is on a circuit that's just had a little sprinkling of rain not far ago, but also the 3rd one of the weekend is the reverse grid race, and we'll come to that in due course. But this grid, based on a driver's 2nd best qualifying time, puts Ayrton Simmons at the front. The BRDC Rising Star won yesterday's race from Oliver Biermann in his first season of car racing. He's also doing F4 in Germany and Italy to try and gain knowledge of single-seater racing cars. It is Zach O'Sullivan, though, who lines up on the outside of the front row. There you can see number 51, the Carlin car of the British driver, the runner-up in the British F4 Championship here in the gloom on the Indy circuit last November. And it was a race that was red flagged, and he was oh so close to being the champion, but the fact that the race was stopped and the result of such meant that it didn't quite work in his favour, much to his chagrin. So there is Ayrton Simmons. Good to have him back in the championship. He drives for Chris Dittman Racing, and he's very much, as I say, the benchmark driver here, because even though he's raced in other categories like the Euro Formula F3 Series, he's raced in British F4, he was 2nd in that for a number of seasons. He raced in that after karting. He's the only driver in this championship to have had a win in one of these cars before. 3 before this weekend and another one yesterday. So Ayrton Simmons there on pole position. He was 3rd in the championship with 3 wins 2 years ago, so he has to start as the favourite. Zach O'Sullivan lines up on the outside of row 1 alongside Ayrton Simmons, the poleman. So it's CDR versus Carlin at the front of the grid, with the Australian driver Bart Horston lining up 3rd for Hi-Tech GP, yet to win in these cars, and Oliver Biermann for Fortec, 4th on the grid, his first season in the BRDC British F3 Championship. Frederick Lubin, who graduates from British F4 to F3, he's 5th on the grid. Reese Ushijima, who was a podium finisher last year, he's 6th for Hi-Tech, back for another season. 7th is where you find the impressive Tom Levin for Elite Motorsport. Tom graduates to single-seaters, Ginetta Junior champion. Elite Motorsport steps up to single-seater racing as well after a good pedigree in Ginetta racing. Alongside Tom Levin is Alex Connor, 4th in F4 last year. Then you have Roberto Faria, who did a few races in this championship at the back end of last season. Sebastian Alvarez moving up from F4. He was the runner-up in the championship last year. Then you have Bryce Aaron, and he is the American driver with Christian Mansell alongside him. 55 on the next row of the grid is Dexter Patterson, the Brit, with alongside him Jose Garfias, the Mexican for Elite Motorsport. Spanish driver Javier Sagrera comes next with Alex Fors, who's given a 5-place grid drop for driving standards infringement yesterday. Rima Al Jafali is next on the grid, the Saudi Arabian racer who graduates from F4, in which he raced last year. Max Maserati back for another season, working oh so hard as ever. Max to get a budget together, another of the CDR drivers. And then at the rear of the grid is 43, and that is Mikkel Grundtvig, the Danish driver, who is another of the many newcomers that we have this year, the 18-year-old who's raced in karts, he's raced in GT racing, and now through single-seaters as well. So as I say, it's a real mix of drivers with different levels of experience, different levels of knowledge of the car, and indeed of the circuit, and indeed of the weather, because right now the rain has started to fall again over at the start and finish line. Not massively so, but it's enough to sprinkle the circuit once again. And so drivers are going to be in for, oh dear, in the case of some, a delayed start. It's Alex Fors that's binned it coming out of Stirling's, and that car ain't going to sit there, I wouldn't have thought. So it's going to be surely a delayed start to get that out of the way. The grid is forming. Let's have a look at all of this. That's totally self-induced, isn't it? Bang into the barrier, wreck the suspension, skittle down the guardrail, and so it's going to surely be a delayed start. I haven't seen a board yet, but I can't believe that that car is going to be allowed to stay there. So the last few cars coming into place, but the start delayed board is being prepared, and yes, the start is delayed. So we'll have to wait for that car to be retrieved. And as soon as it is, then the drivers will have another formation lap and we'll try again. So the cars, as I say, have to sit on the grid. As soon as the track is clear, then we will have the cars for another formation lap, and the race possibly reduced because of the extra formation lap. Let's have another look at it. So coming then here out of Stirling's, Alex Falls just accelerates and bang, just completely lost adhesion. So it's going to be down by 1 lap. It was going to be 12. We're now to 11 because of this delayed start.
As Alan suggested, a few bits of rain in the air. Can't see any obvious reason why there might be a brief pause.
So the drivers prepare themselves.
Held down for a lot longer, which must have been the start delay board.
Right, there's Zach O'Sullivan on the outside of the front row of the grid.
I can't actually see the text that's on it from my position. Now the teams are in the pit lane. I wonder if I can help.
Fans get themselves ready in the grandstands. Brolly's up.
No, I don't. Maybe the official on the gantry might be able to sort of off the record tell you, and then we might be able to relay it.
We have spots of rain, which I've already told you, and we have a huge black.
So as soon as Alex Fall's car is retrieved, then we will be good to go, ready for another formation lap. And the drivers, of course, as they're sitting on the grid, keeping an eye on the weather conditions. They're all on slicks. Also, to make the point about this, some of the drivers are on half a new set, others on a used set, deciding if the weather conditions are going to be bad. Don't waste a brand new set. Do that when it's totally dry.
I'm getting a buzzing on my phone, which might mean that we've got information coming through. Oh, yeah. Oh, goodness. Not a lot of information.
So 18 on pole. That is Ayrton Simmons. And there will be, of course, another green flag lap to try and generate some warmth into the tyres. 87 you can see there. That is Oliver Bierman. So Oliver Bierman, who is new to the championship this season. Third driver at Fortec. He's going to be doing selected rounds, not the whole championship. And he's also going to be doing German and Italian F4. There is Oliver Bierman, having had a very, very busy last 8 years, 9 years or so in karting, and now a huge amount of racing he's going to be doing this year, Italian and German F4, plus as many British F3 races as he can get in. So we'll have then the cars, as I say, released eventually onto a formation lap. It's not only a case of getting Alex Fall's car out of the way, it's also checking that there's no barrier damage. But right now, that car still hasn't moved. Only now, strangely, do we seem to be getting it ready to go. And the race distance is down to 10 laps. It is dwindling all the time. So it should have been 20 minutes or 12 laps. It is now 10 laps or 18 minutes because of this delayed start with Alex Falls, whose weekend it is not. 5-place grid drop after a incident yesterday, driving standards grid drop, and now he doesn't even get to the start of race 2. So drivers getting ever more frustrated about this. They want to go racing, and of course they also want to get this race done should the weather conditions change. They're all on slick tyres, either half a new set or a totally used set, but they want to get the race done before the weather changes, and it might be changing for the worse. You never know. It's been a bit fickle this morning. So confirmation of 10 laps.
I think almost since its inception some years ago when we started way back with the...
There's the grid ready to go. All of these cars are the same. The Tatius chassis with the Mountune Duratec engine in the back of them. And they have Pirelli rubber, and it's down to the team, the driver, to get the most out of it. Of course, this was a brand new car built for the championship when MSV took over the name of British F3, although they're more to the regional Formula 3 spec than the FIA spec, but they carry the Formula 3 tag, and it was Tatius that was approached to build the grid. There you see Rhys Ushijima, the Japanese driver who from the MRF Challenge came into the championship last year and had 2 podiums, so wants his first win. He's also done a little bit of Formula Ford 1600 racing at Anglesey, the obvious place to go for your very first car races. If you're of Japanese extraction, born in California, where else do you start racing but Anglesey? So let's, just as you look down onto the grid, just remind ourselves what happened yesterday, because the first race of the championship began with a good start by Ed Simmons from that pole position, chased by Oliver Bierman on the run up towards Paddock Hill Bend. Zach O'Sullivan third as they dive their way through the right-hander. Plenty of battles lower down as well. Ushijima to the outside line as he tried to get in on the out with Bart Horston. And number 7 on the inside, also busy scrobbling, Roberto Faria. Faria, sadly, would not make it to the end, as up front, Ayrton Simmons used his experience to build the lead. Others, rather less fortunate. Faria running out of road, bouncing across the gravel and the grass, getting back onto the circuit and having to slot in behind Bryce Aaron as the cars ran down through Stirlings towards Clearways once more. Plenty of drivers taking liberties in the dry, and then a big, big lose here. Off the road into retirement went the Fortec car. Others finding the extremities of the road at Stirlings, but that was Jose Garfias for Elite out of the race. For the race lead, though, Ayrton Simmons being caught a little, then stretched it to over a second come the very end of the race. Others still charging their way through, including Christian Mansell, who's been busy on social media with his own hashtag of Mansellmania, a nod to Formula 1 of over 2 decades ago. And Christian Mansell was busy squabbling late races. He eventually made the move on the inside, just getting himself up alongside the CDR entry as the two of them ran along the Cooper Straight, braked hard, turned through on the inside line and was able just to pick up the place. It was a good fight, but it ended in tears, sadly, as the cars ended up running towards Westfield, and Alex Falls getting himself involved in incidents as the race went on. Very brave effort on the inside line going through Paddock, and then Faria and Falls got themselves together and bang, and that was the incident that did for Faria, and it was also the reason for the grid drop for Alex Falls. Little good did it matter in the end, because sadly he's the man that's given us this delayed start. So surprisingly, it is taking a long time to recover Alex Falls' car. The flatbed is there, and it's all quiet on the grid. Engines turned off then, so there was no way the race could have started with that car in a dangerous place. And even if it started behind the safety car, given how long it's taken not to get removed, it would have been a waste of time altogether. So the low loader, I think, is about to set off, what I understand, but it's been a lengthy recovery. There it is. So the car is finally on the back of the flatbed. Of course, although it's early in the day, there's a lot of racing to do, and there is a curfew at Brands Hatch that has to be adhered to. So from the race organising point of view, they can ill afford things like this. There's Rhys Ushijima on the grid. Ooh, Marshall with whistle. That's always a sign that things are about to happen. Engines fire up, and the 1 minute board suddenly appears. So it's going to be a 10-lap race. Now, 10 laps to get round 2 of the BRDC British F3 Championship underway. So the drivers have had a lengthy wait. Suddenly, oh, right, got to get going now. So they've got to wake themselves up, sight themselves up, get ready, have another sighting lap, find out what the track surface is like. The sprinkling of rain that I mentioned 10, 15 minutes ago is long since gone and dried, so the road should be okay. And 18 minutes max So if you've got a safety car period, for example, it would go to time, not laps. So the engines are all fired up. The grid is light by one car, and very shortly they'll be released, ready for the final, we hope, formation lap. Then round onto the grid. Away goes Simmons. Absolutely nails it, doesn't he? Then to get some rubber down that he can use on the start proper. So Ayrton Simmons using his experience. Very, very underrated driver is Ayrton Simmons, and accelerates away. Even though you didn't see Ayrton Senna race, you can work out from the family's interest in the sport where the Christian name comes from. Just remind you of the grid. Ayrton Simmons for Chris Dittman Racing, CDR, starting on pole position with Zach O'Sullivan lining up on the outside of the front row of that grid. Second row is where you find Bart Horston for High-Tech and Oliver Bierman for Fortec lining up alongside the Australian and the Brit, ahead of Frederick Lubin. He starts 5th, Rhys Ushijima alongside him. 7th is Tom Levin, the man to watch, and Alex Connor, another graduate of F4, 4th in the championship last year, starting 8th, ahead of Roberto Faria and Sebastian Alvarez, runner-up 2 years ago in British F4. Bryce Aram raced here at the Formula Ford Festival. He was 5th. He raced in the Walter Hayes Trophy. He's got Christian Mansell alongside him, Dexter Patterson for Douglas, and Jose Garfias for Elite on the 7th row of the grid. Row 8 is where you find Javier Sagrera and no Alex Falls. There will be a gap where he is not. Rima Jafali and Max Maserati are on the next row of the grid, and then behind them you will have Mikkel Grundtvig in the final Fortec car ready to go. So the cars make their way once more back round to the grid, and Ayrton Simmons has to start as the favourite. Not suggesting he's going to have it all his own way all season, but as others are still learning about the cars and graduating from other categories, less powerful, less aero possibly, there's still a bit of learning to do. He does have the advantage, and what's going to be interesting as well is to see how he fares in the third race of the day, which is the reverse grid. Not race results reversed, but the result of the qualifying session. So he was on pole position for race 1, therefore last on the grid for race 3. Down towards clearways they come then. Drivers, as you can see, accelerating, heavy braking to try and get the temperature from the brakes through into the tyres, up to the grid. Ayrton Simmons will slot into place then. 18 minutes or 10 laps, and very shortly we'll be good to go here at Brands Hatch. It is round 2 of the BRDC British F3 Championship. Races 1 and 2, which are, if you like, from the conventional grid, have the weightier points, 35 for a win, whereas the reverse grid race has just 20 for a win. In these 2 races, it's the top 20 that score, and of course you also gain in the third race points for every car that you pass from your grid to finishing position, but we'll worry about that towards the end of the day here at a now chilly and blustery Brands Hatch, as we are finally good to go. Drivers look towards the lighting gantry, which in a moment will have the lights go red. It does. The lights go out now, and a good start is made from the second row. Look by Bart Horston, who tries to find the gap between the 2 front row cars, and he's done it. Brilliant start. He goes up to the outside line of Ayrton Simmons. He can't quite get the race lead. Can he get the switchback though now and aim for the inside at Druitt? He tries the inside. Simmons covers that off. Horston to the outside line. The Australian bangs wheels with Simmons, who rides over the top of him. The 2 of them tangle and are effectively out of the race. That was a long, long time Simmons spent atop the rear wing of Bart Horston's car, and it has done for both of them. Out of the race, Ayrton Simmons effectively out of the race, Bart Horston, because the damage will be too great. There'll be 2 longer pit stops to really carry on significantly from there. And out of all of that, the safety car is deployed, and Zach O'Sullivan will inherit the race lead. High drama going through Druids. Bart Horston on the outside line, Ayrton Simmons on the inside line. The 2 of them get themselves together, and a very, very strange sight for what felt like a good few seconds of time. The net result is that the safety car is out. We have out of the race, to all intents and purposes, Simmons and Horston. Bart Horston from the second row of the grid. Great start, and he was absolutely determined to try to make that move stick around the outside of Druids. So the safety car deployed. I'm trying to find where the cars have actually come to rest, because just looking into the distance up at Druids, I can't instantly see anybody that's on the racing line. Bart Horston, I think, has got going, despite the lack of rear wing, so wherever Ayrton Simmons' car has ended up, it might actually be up against the tyre wall, hidden from a view, but we'll see as the leaders come through. Yes, there it is, and you can see on the run down from Druids. I can't see it with a naked eye, I can see it on the pictures here, but that car needs removing. So Ayrton Simmons out of the race, and the field goes through. So Zach O'Sullivan leads the way, and could be on for a maiden win, depending on what Oliver Beerman second or Rhys Ushijima third can do. And Bart Halston brings a kind of Formula 2 3/4 into the pit lane, doesn't he? Because there's not a lot left at the back of it, and the team now attends to that. So for High Tech, they will go to work, try and repair that for race 3. The only benefit to getting it out now is to test it, make sure all is well. Brilliant start by Bart Halston, prized open the gap look, trying to go around the outside of Simmons diving into paddock. That was not going to work. So next thing, go for the inside. Simmons was there already. He keeps on coming. Look, he's got the room, he's got his nose in front, and it seems to be Simmons, dare one say, that ran a bit deeper into the corner towards Halston's line, and that's where the contact came from. There it is from another angle. Already had the contact, but the net result was that Ayrton Simmons sits atop Bart Halston's car, broken suspension as he lands as well. And here it is again. Ayrton Simmons gets a free ride, but it does for him, and he's out of the race.
Yeah.
So there is Bart Halston, that's his race done. Gets out of the car, Oliver Oak's team, High Tech GP. And they want to get that back to the paddock as soon as possible to start the repairs, because that's going to be a lengthy job. It's not a case of just bolt a new rear wing on and send it out. So very frustrated, Bart Halston. But he has his version of events, of course. And I think we can totally eavesdrop, but clearly Big Zep had a big part to play in that. Bart apologising to the team, which is nice to see, but you can debate for yourselves whether that was his fault or whether it was Ayrton Simmons' fault, but the race officials may choose to have a look. So Ayrton Simmons' car is being retrieved. We are behind the safety car. So it's not been a good race for Chris Dittman, has it? One car didn't get into the race, one is out on the opening lap. There's another one surviving, I think, somewhere, Max Maserati, and he is in 13th place. So CDR has got 2 cars with broken front suspension to attend to at the end of this race. Bart Halston there just being interviewed in the background, you see, for the trackside audience. And the team looking at the damage, trying to assess it, but I don't think it's going to go much further in this. They can do a very, very hasty repair job. As I say, get it out for a lap or 2 just as a test session. Ain't a bad idea, but it's a rather forlorn hope, possibly. Right, so then, this is the end of lap 2, and it's the race that's not really been yet. Over the timing line they come. Zach O'Sullivan, the race leader. Oliver Beerman is second. Rhys Ushijima is third. Fourth is Frederick Lubin, ahead of Alex Connor, and then Roberto Faria sixth. Tom Levin seventh, who was really, really impressive last year in the ever feisty Ginetta Junior Championship. And to make the point, not only has he made the graduation, but so also has Elite Motorsport, which effectively has bought the assets of Lannan. And so the Elite Motorsport team that's been very, very good in junior TOCA supporting championships comes up to F3 this year. Running 8th, Sebastian Alvarez. 9th is Bryce Aaron, the American driver. And 10th is Christian Mansell. So as the cars now turn their way downhill, Christian Mansell, the Australian driver, who has won races in F4, including, in fact, a win at Brands Hatch. So it's a good circuit for the Antipodean.
I don't know if it got hit or something.
So down towards Surtees they come, and we look to see if the road is clear yet. Hopefully we can go racing pretty soon for this second BRDC British F3 Championship race of the weekend of the season. So cars now turning their way once more downhill and in towards Hawthorns this time around, with the race order shuffled from the grid because of the dramas on the opening lap before the safety car was deployed. The safety car is in this time then, so the lights will be extinguished. We'll get ready to go racing, and the safety car will head for the pit lane. The race will get back underway at the end of lap 3. There's another sorry sight for CDR. Ayrton Simmons' car badly damaged. However, Zach O'Sullivan cares not one jot because he's the race leader, and the 16-year-old Brit who drove for Carlin in F4 last year won more races than any other driver. Topped the podium on 9 occasions. He was on the podium 18 times in F4 last season, Zach O'Sullivan. He's the man that leads the race right now. Second in the championship last year, second 2 years ago in Ginetta Juniors. So he wants a title this year. He's fed up of being the runner-up, that's for sure. So the safety car is in, and we will be racing very shortly then as Zach O'Sullivan charges now down towards Clark Curve, accelerates away, and what can he do to stretch that margin? Let's see as they come over the timing line right now. On the attack there, Roberto Faria looked to the outside line as he comes up. That's Alex Connor just ahead of him. Arden versus Fortec as they dive down through paddock. And the Arden entry of Alex Connor, another team graduating to F3, comes under huge attack. Faria looks to the inside line. Roberto Faria moved across to F3 at the back end of last season, so he's ahead in terms of experience of the car, and indeed working with the team on the setup of the car. Down now towards the left of Surtees, lap 4 of 10, and we've got 10 minutes on the clock as well, so this could be going for time rather than laps. We'll have to keep an eye on that as well. Onto the Grand Prix section of the circuit they go once again, but Zach O'Sullivan leads. He's not getting away, is he, from Oliver Bierman here. Oliver was second yesterday, Zach was third, so Oliver Bierman wants a win, and look, he has certainly got the pace. He may not be a factor for the championship, depending on how many races he does. So when he's here, he wants to show intent, and he's right there on the tail as the leaders come once more out of Westfield, drop down through the dip on the way to Sheen Curve, through Dingledale. Up the hill they will come. And with this being lap 4 out of 10 and 9.5 minutes on the clock, could be that it's an even shorter race than first planned there. 55 going through, that is Dexter Patterson. The Douglas Motorsport, the driver from last year's Italian F4 Championship, learning about, ironically, new circuits, even though he's a Brit. Doesn't know them at all yet. He's raced in Italy and he's done lots of karting, but new to Brands Hatch. Leaders go through then, and the margin, 0.4 of a second as Zach O'Sullivan leads Oliver Bierman. Rhys Ushijima is the man in third. Frederick Lubin is fourth. Fifth, Alex Connor. Sixth, Roberto Faria. Seventh is Tom Levin. Eighth, Sebastian Alvarez. Ninth is Bryce Aaron. And 10th, Christian Mansell, as we work lap 5 at Brands Hatch with just under 9 minutes to go and 5 laps to get in. So the race leaders then covered by 0.4 of a second. Turn now onto the Grand Prix section once again. And as they do so, there you've got the field streaming through. Of course, one of the downsides to modern-day single-seater racing is the fact that overtaking on a circuit where you can't get a tow with aero is not that easy. It's one of the reasons that reverse grid race was introduced, to try and stimulate the driver's desire and hunger to do the overtaking rather than banking points. Now, there are some circuits, like when they race at Spa, for example, where you can anticipate lots of slipstreaming. So you get in the dirty air of the car ahead, it does have that negative effect on the aero, but overtaking is possible, and you'll see that later on in the day. Brands isn't the widest of circuits, of course, so you've got to be on your toes to do it. 21 is in a big hurry, Christian Mansell there, who's getting onto the back of Bryce Aaron, so it's America versus Australia as the two of them drop down towards clearways, the two Carlin cars. Carlin took the championship last year, courtesy of Caelan Frederick, and as they come over the timing line now, Zach O'Sullivan leads the way by only half a second. Oliver Bierman is not giving up in his pursuit, that's for certain. So there, 23 is Bryce Aaron. As I say, he was here as part of Jeremy Shaw's USA Scholarship team in the Formula Ford Festival last year. Roberto Faria coming under attack from Tom Levin's very colourful car. But Bryce Aaron then accelerates down towards Surtees. Faria versus Levin. Tom Levin, the Ginetta Junior champion after a season, but at one point had him on his roof at Silverstone, accelerates down into the right of Hawthorne. Levin doing a good job here, totally new this weekend to single-seater cars. Only 16 years of age, staying with Elite Motorsport, and after a good karting pedigree, now, as I say, switching his attention to powerful single-seaters. Behind him and trying to inch up onto the tail is Sebastian Alvarez. So the race leaders with just under 7 minutes to go. They're on lap 6 out of the 10 here. Little slide for 1 or 2 as they come out of Stirling's. Of course, they're part of the circuit that did pre-race for Alex Fours, but down into clearways. There, look, Bryce Aaron with Christian Mansell behind him. They're in the same team, but they're not teammates, as it were, because it is every man for himself. The one rule is don't take out your teammate. Other than that, they've all paid to be in that team, and on this grid, they want to get the best results they can. The gap between the leaders, by the way, has just gone up because the best lap of the race has been done by Zach O'Sullivan. He's on a 1:20.997, so he's getting away from the opposition. Oliver Bierman looks for a second of the weekend. Lap 7 we're on and 6 minutes to go. So far it looks like we are going to get the full 10 laps in now. And a third race to come at the end of the afternoon for the BRDC British F3 Championship drivers. Now there is Bryce Aaron, and he's under attack. You can see, because crawling all over the back of him is Christian Mansell. Down they come again into the right-hander of Hawthorn. Swing through the right-hander, now get back onto the power. Hard at work is Christian Mansell, but he's got this problem of being in the dirty air generated by the car ahead. Now the run down towards clearways, heading into that right-hander. Behind the pair of Carlin drivers, Dexter Patterson. But he's not quite close enough to really think about making a move. As the leaders go by then, the lead gap up again, 1.3 seconds. So as the field pours once again over the timing line, it is O'Sullivan that leads the way by 1.3 from Bierman second. Rhys Ushijima's last lap. Now, I was going to just pose the question as to whether he might be able to catch or not, but he's dropped back by another, 7/10 or so. So that margin widens between them. They turn their way then onto Cooper Straight once again. You're looking also at this battle between Aaron and Mansell for 9th and 10th places. So Ushijima's dropping back from Bierman, and Bierman's falling away slightly from O'Sullivan. We've got 4 minutes on the clock, 3 laps to go. And Zach O'Sullivan is looking ever more secure up front, and a win on your first weekend in a new championship matters. Now, granted, he kind of inherited that lead after the tangle, but his racecraft yesterday was good. He had a third. He was second on this grid, and here he is for the race lead. As you look at Faria, still under attack from Tom Levin. 6th and 7th they go. Race leader comes over the line just further up the road, and to give you an idea of the gap, it's 1.6 seconds. 2 laps to go, 3.5 minutes. Yeah, it's going to just about fit together for the race leaders here. O'Sullivan, Bierman, Ushijima, 1, 2 and 3. Frederick Lubin's having a pretty impressive, if understated, race in 4th place. He's not drawing attention to himself, but the 16-year-old Brit, another graduate from F4, he was the Rookie Cup runner-up last year. He is there in 4th spot, Frederick Lubin, and a graduate of the Arden-affiliated Young Driver Academy, Young Racing Driver Academy, moved to single-seaters after karts last year. So Lubin 4th, banking points, gaining experience, improving on 6th, which is where he was in yesterday's race. And there is Tom Levin, still hanging on to 7th place. Race leaders with 1 more lap to run at the end of this look as though Zach O'Sullivan is going to be an easy victor come the end. Through they swing once more into Sterling's. There is Mansell. He's fallen away slightly from Bryce Aaron, but as they come down to Clark Curve, that's the race leader starting his last lap. So through goes Zach O'Sullivan. In second is Oliver Bierman, and the gap is 1.5 seconds now. Ushijima third is another 2.7 seconds back. So, again, nearly but not quite for Oliver Bierman. In 4th place, Frederick Lubin ahead of Alex Connor, Roberto Faria, Tom Levin, Sebastian Alvarez, Bryce Aaron, Christian Mansell, and they're right at the very back of the shot, Dexter Patterson in 11th place. So, long line of cars. It's going to be very interesting indeed, though, to see what's going to pan out for the reverse grid race later on in the day, because for that, Ayrton Simmons is going to have a lot of work to do, and of course it's going to be in a repaired car. It won't have had any mileage, won't have had any testing until it drives to the grid. So Zach O'Sullivan new to the championship, and he's on target for a race win in this second round of the BRDC British F3 Championship. There, number 12 dives into Hawthorne, that being Sebastian Alvarez, another of the high-tech drivers, indeed the second best in the race now. Teammate Rhys Ushijima a few places further up the road. They're going through in almost Caleb Frederick-esque colours is Bryce Arons, the kind of Carlin America livery, if you like, now. To the checkered flag, though, Zach O'Sullivan for Carlin is going to win race 2 of the weekend. Zach O'Sullivan wins at Brands Hatch, crosses the line, well clear by 2 seconds of Oliver Bierman in second place. It's a second for Bierman of the weekend. Rhys Ushijima bags third. 4th goes the way of Frederick Lubin. Alex Connor is 5th. 6th, Roberto Faria. 7th, Tom Levin. 8th, Sebastian Alvarez. 9th, Bryce Aaron. Christian Mansell takes 10th. And 11th, Dexter Patterson, just ahead of Javier Sagrera. 13th goes to Max Maserati. Then in 14th place, Jose Garfiaz, ahead of Mikkel Grundtvig and Remo Jafali at the rear of the pack. So a very good drive indeed by Zach O'Sullivan. It's a real shame that we had the tangle on the first lap. Zach might say, no, it's not, that helped me win. But it certainly did affect things, and it means that we lost, of course, Bart Horston and Ayrton Simmons. So, confirmation of how they came across the line. Zach O'Sullivan took the checkered flag ahead of Oliver Bierman. Rhys Ushijima in 3rd place. Frederick Lubin was 4th ahead of Alex Connor. And then 6th, Roberto Faria. 7th, Tom Levin ahead of Sebastian Alvarez and Bryce Aaron. 9th, Christian Mansell bagged 10th ahead of Dexter Patterson. And then Javier Sagrera. 13th, Max Maserati. 14th was Jose Garfiaz. 15th, Mikkel Grundtvig. And just one more finisher after that. 16th, Remo Jafali, with, of course, Ayrton Simmons a retirement, Bart Horston a retirement, and effectively Alex Fors a non-starter. Highlights of the race: Ayrton Simmons sideways off the line. He put a lot of rubber down on the formation lap in order to try to do that, but Bart Horston made an absolutely ripper getaway, found the gap between Simmons and O'Sullivan, couldn't quite get the race lead at paddock, so he tried again at Druid. He was on the outside line, he was ahead, and Simmons just seemed to slide wide towards him. There was certainly contact, and Simmons rode up over the top of Horston's car, and that was them both out of the race, and it brought the safety car to the circuit so that the battered car of Simmons could be retrieved. Green flag flew, and O'Sullivan was straight back into the groove, trying to build the lead over Oliver Bierman, and he was able so to do as that gap widened over the course of the race. Further back, Christian Mansell was on target for 10th, and Zach O'Sullivan scoring a maiden win in BRDC British F3. Another race to go coming up at 4:15. We'll see you then. For now, bye-bye from Brands.